I got all I need. Thank you.
Thank you, George. That's one of my favorites. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. It's a pleasure to be here and to see all of you this morning. We've been working on a series based on the book Ask Yourself This from my friend Wendy Craig Purcell, and the subtitle is Questions to Open the Heart, Expand the Mind, and Awaken the Soul. And the first week we talked about questions that will help us to grow spiritually, and then last week we spoke of questions to know ourselves better. And this week we're going to talk about questions to help us to grow personally, how we can grow ourselves. And so last week the questions were really geared toward kind of getting to know who we are as we are now, and the truth of who we are. And those are really valuable questions. And so the next series of questions really is to kind of direct us in asking those kinds of questions that will help us to move into not just who we are now, but who we can be. What is our possibilities and what are our potentials? And so I came across a couple of stories. I always like to start off with some stories. During the minister's lesson one Sunday, there was a very loud whistle from one of the back pews. And little Johnny's mother was horrified, and so she pinched him and silenced him after church. Anybody had similar experiences? I know I did, but so after church, she asked Johnny, well, what in the world got into you? What made you, do such a thing in the middle of the prayer? And he said, well, I prayed that God would help me learn to whistle, and he did right at that moment. There we go. Ask and ye shall receive, right? And there was this tour guide who was giving a tour of a museum at the University of Saskatchewan. And he was giving a tour guide of a group of first graders. And they went to the biology museum, and one little guy was really fascinated with just the mammoth, with the big giant mammoth and the tusk of the mammoth. And the mammoth, the teacher said to the group, well, the mammoth is now extinct, and which means that it died many, many, many years ago. And this one little girl, big eyes, looked up at her and said, were you sad when it happened? Sorry, I resemble that remark. And one of my favorite actresses is Susan Sarandon. And Susan says she was a product of a Catholic upbringing, went to Catholic school, but she was never shy about speaking out. And that's one of the things I have to say I like about her. She was never shy about speaking what she thought and asking questions. And she said, I was asking all the wrong questions, even back in the third grade. When the nuns explained how you had to be married in the church or you weren't married, I asked, well, how is it that Joseph and Mary were married, since Jesus didn't come up with that until later? They sent me out to the principal's office and said I had an overabundance of original sin. Oh, my. And then there's this one. The teacher said, there's the bell. Thank you, class. And little Zoe comes up to her and says, that's it? Well, that wasn't too bad. In fact, it was easy. I like first grade. And the teacher said, well, glad to hear it, Zoe. We'll see you again tomorrow. And she said, what? I have to come back? Yes, we have to come back. It's just the first day. And so we're here asking questions to help us to continue in our education, if you might say. To know more about ourselves, but know more about who we are and who we can be. I'm absolutely convinced that humanity really is on the cusp and really at a point of evolving in our consciousness, where we are really actually moving into a greater participation in our own growth and in the unfoldment of our world, that people are really waking up to this understanding that we are participants in creating our lives and creating the experiences in our lives and creating all of the circumstances of life. And the more of us, as we begin to wake up, we'll find that we'll begin to do that in a more conscious way. And we'll be creating, I believe, a much more, and I think we're really in the process of doing this, of really creating a world that really reflects more of our true nature, the love that we are, the essence of our being. You know, I'm not saying it's that we're there 100% at this point, but we're waking up, and I think that's an important understanding. So I was thinking about all the different questions, that we're moving into a time where we can really deepen the essence of our awareness of our divine nature and that creative process that's going on in and through us. I was reminded in Wendy's book, she talks about if you went to your high school reunion, anybody ever gone to your high school reunion? I've been to a couple of them. It's been a while. What if you went to your high school reunion and someone said to you, well, you haven't changed a bit? Yeah. Well, you'd go, wow, that's really wonderful. But on some level, you kind of go, well, wait a minute. I hope I've changed a little bit. You know, we certainly hope that we've changed on the inside. And that's really something that we want to grow through the changes in life and really be able to look at life differently. I hope if I went back to my high school reunion, people would say, wow, you've really changed. And really mean that as a good thing. My hope is that I would be a much better person, in all honesty, and a little more mature than I was in high school, perhaps, hopefully. You know, I was kind of immature in lots of ways in high school looking back on it. I didn't think I was at the time. So we want to ask ourselves questions that really help us to discover what are the possibilities of us. We've come to appreciate over years that we are doing work that's moving us into becoming more of the possibilities of, and you might say that we are really becoming more Christ-like. And that's the part of our goal, I believe, as spiritual beings, is to become more like that divine idea of what God created us to be. You see, in Unity, we have an understanding that Christ is not Jesus' last name. That Christ is this perfect idea of humankind that we are all created to be, and Jesus came to show us what the possibilities were for each of us, the potential that's within every one of us. And he said, the things that I have done, you shall do also, and even greater things. We find that message is often missed in many circles. And so we want to come back to that understanding that we are being called to come up to a higher place and to be able to express more of our own unique divine potential. And so one of the questions that Wendy puts out there is, and it's a great one, am I willing to let go of the size of life that I've known to have a bigger life? Am I willing to let go of the size of life I've known in order to have a bigger life? There's an article in in Parade magazine where Oprah Winfrey makes a statement about knowing that she was to live a bigger life. And when you think about her history and the life that she has lived, it's pretty big. It's a big thought for her to think, given the circumstances that she lived through, that she was destined to experience and to live something bigger in life. I think that's true of every single one of us, that we are being called to something greater. There's a bigger game for us to play. We're being called to play something bigger than what we're playing right now. When I think about that question, I have to be honest, I'm kind of going, well, okay, I know that there are times that I kind of get nervous about playing a bigger game. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Because at times I kind of believe that I'm playing the biggest game that I know how, and the reality is that's true. We are right now playing the biggest game that we currently know how. But there's a saying that what got us here will not get us there. Does that make sense? All of the thinking and the thoughts and the ideas and the beliefs and the energy and the consciousness that got us into the life that we are experiencing right now is not going to be the same as what will move us into that next experience and expression of a bigger life for ourselves. So we have to be open and willing to allow new awarenesses, new insights, new opportunities, new adventures, new challenges to come into our lives in order to play a bigger game. And sometimes those come into our lives in the form of what we sometimes call problems, don't they? I'm convinced that that's one of the main reasons why we have problems in life, is so we can play a bigger game. Now, sometimes I just assume they didn't show up at times. I'll be honest, I'm not ready for them a lot of times, but I know that ultimately there is something at work in me and through the universe that's trying to help me to move into that bigger game, that bigger life, that bigger opportunity for expressing my unique divine nature. And I know that's true for each and every one of us. There's a wonderful example that's given in the book about New York City. New York City, an amazing city. How many of you have been to New York City? Wow, most of you, that's great. New York City, when it was first established, had a total of 5 or 6 streets. Did you know that? And the city fathers, in their great wisdom, decided they needed to plan for growth. So they put out a plan, and they decided they would name the farthest street that they would build, they were going to call that Boundary Street. And so they created the city plan, and they named this street Boundary Street, and they put it on 19th Street. Because they knew that was absolutely the largest that the city was ever going to be. How many streets do you suppose there are in New York City right now? Well, they list here, and this article was written actually some years ago, they list here 254. But I think there's actually even more than that now. We don't really oftentimes know what our boundaries are, do we? But we think we do. And so one of the things that we're open to is to asking this question, am I willing to let go of the life that I know now in order to experience and live into something even more? And I'm open to the experiences that life are bringing to me that are there to help me to discover the qualities, the characteristics, the strengths, the possibilities of living into that next level of life. Great question to ask. Am I willing? And the reality is, you could say, no, I'm not willing. I'm okay with life just exactly the way it is right now. I don't want any more changes. I don't want to grow anymore. And I got some disappointing news for you. The truth of the matter is, we are going to have those experiences anyway, because life has more for us than we even can imagine for ourselves, and what we think we're ready for, or what were possible for us. And so I invite you to just simply be open to asking that question and letting the universe provide the greater possibilities. I love one of the stories I came across in the writings of Alan Cohen. He wrote this wonderful book called The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore. And I think it was in that book that he gave the example of he had a goldfish bowl that he had goldfish in, and they would swim around in the goldfish bowl, and he needed to clean out the goldfish bowl, so he took the goldfish bowl and he filled the bathtub and decided he was going to put the fish in the bathtub while he cleaned the bowl. So he put the fish in the bathtub, and when he finished cleaning the bowl, he came back and he observed something really fascinating. And the goldfish were still swimming in a circle in exactly the same size in the tub as they had been swimming in the goldfish bowl. They couldn't see beyond the limits, that the boundaries were no longer there for them because they were so conditioned in that way. So you and I, in order to live into that bigger life, have to be willing to look beyond the boundaries of our little goldfish bowls and recognize that there's still great possibilities that are beyond our vision, and be open to allowing Spirit to expand our vision and to see things from a different perspective. One of the ways we do that has to do with this next question that Wendy poses for us. Another valuable question to help us know our possibilities and our potential to know ourselves and to grow personally is to ask this question: what is my intention? Where am I focusing my intention? It's probably one of the best ways I describe it. What are we intending to experience and express in our lives. A great example of this for me, some years ago I had the opportunity to go hang gliding. How many of you have done hang gliding? We have some. Wow, that's great. We have 3 or 4. That's great. It's an amazing experience. I got an opportunity to go to Kill Devil Hills, which is right close to Kitty Hawk in North Carolina. Beautiful area, beautiful beaches, beautiful sand dunes. I've got these wonderful sand dunes. And I just, my former wife and I decided we were going to go and try this hang gliding thing. I'd been kind of wanting to do it for a long time, and she went along to which was nice of her. And she and I, before we did the hang gliding, you go through some training, and they teach you 3 basic things that you need to remember when you're doing hang gliding. The first one is relax. You have to be relaxed in order to do the hang glider. The second one is you need to find a point on the horizon in the direction that you want to go. These are your intentions. Find a point on the horizon in the direction that you want to go. Think about that not only in terms of hang gliding, but I think you want to think about that in terms of your life. You want to focus on where you want to see yourself being. If that's true in all of the aspects of our lives, because the reality is we are in the process of creating our life even as we're sitting right here, right now. Do you realize that? And if we have our intentions scattered all over the place, and we're going to find that our life will tend to be that way. If we have our intentions focused on what we're trying to avoid, guess what? That's what we're putting our energy into, and we will find that we get lots more of what we're trying to avoid. It's true, isn't it? And so we want to focus our intention in the directions that we want to go. Find a point on the horizon of where you want to be, and keep your attention focused in that way. And then the third thing they teach you, of course, is to don't over-control. Don't over-control. When you're flying a hang glider, it's really interesting because you focus on where you want to go, and you control the direction of the hang glider by your focus and by the balance of your weight. And so if you are leaning just even slightly one way, right or left, that's the way you're going to go. Actually, it's in some way it's opposite. If you happen to lean to the left, you'll actually wind up going to the right, which is kind of odd. I'm trying to remember, is that accurate? No, I think I've got it. I think I had it right the first time. You tend to lean whichever way you tend to go. Anyway, so my former wife, and she gave me permission to tell this story. So she got up on the hang glider, and she picked a point in the distance that she wanted to go. And as she went off of the dunes, she happened to notice this large sandbank over here down to the left. And she was looking over that way, and guess where she wound up? And as she did, the front of her legs hit that sandbank and just gave her some really massive bruises on the front of her leg. Bless her heart. It just bruised her pretty significantly. We were really concerned about her. I have to say she did have the courage to get up and try it again. And so I really honor her for that. I want to acknowledge her for getting up, and she did it again and had a really nice flight the next time. She kind of learned her lesson very quickly. Well, that was just a great lesson, not only for her, but it was a great lesson for me also. And it's a great lesson that a story that I've been able to share over and over again, because it really is our story, because we do that, don't we? We tend to look at the intentions that we have, and then we wind up seeing what all the obstacles might be, and we focus our attention on the obstacles. Guess where we're going? So it's so valuable for us to understand that we want to set our intentions in the direction we want to go and stay with those clear intentions. And not that we ignore obstacles, but we certainly don't put our time, our energy, and our attention into focusing on the obstacles. Another great question that Wendy has us ask ourselves to grow personally: who am I trying to please? Ask yourself that question. Who are you trying to please? Who are you trying to please in life? I think we all oftentimes go through life, and there are ways and times that we do want to certainly work with and be happy and help others to be happy. But when we're in that energy of trying to please others, what we're trying to do, oftentimes we give up who we are in order to try and help someone else or to make someone else happy. And that can be a challenge, and it's a trap a lot of times. There was a great story that I love. It was a grandfather and a grandson who were making a pilgrimage, and they were traveling along, and they had a donkey. And as they were traveling along, they were walking along and just bringing the donkey along. The donkey was carrying maybe some packs and things. And as they walked through one village, one of the people in the village says, "Well, gosh, that's really, I can't believe how dumb these guys are. Why aren't they riding the donkey? You know, that older man should be riding the donkey. You know, he looks like he could really use a lift there." And they kind of heard him talking, and so they thought about it, and they said, oh yeah, maybe they're right. Maybe we should do that. So the grandfather got up on the donkey, and they're walking along, and the young boy is walking along and riding the donkey, and they go through another town. In the other town, the town says, "Look at that old man. Look how he's just mistreating that young boy, and he, that poor young guy, he should get off of that donkey and let the young boy ride the donkey." And they thought, "Oh, wow, well, maybe we should do that." So the old man gets off of the donkey, and the young boy gets on the donkey, and they're going along. They go through another town, and the people there are just, "Look at that young whippersnapper. I can't believe it. Look at how he's making his grandfather walk when he's riding the donkey. They should both get on the donkey." And they thought, "Oh, wow, maybe we should do that." Yeah, okay, so both of them are on the donkey. And they go through another town. And this town, they're going, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe what they're doing to that poor little donkey. Can you believe that? That poor donkey, they're just torturing that poor little donkey. They should both get off of that donkey. In fact, they should even carry the donkey." And they thought, "Oh, well, man, maybe we should do that." So the next thing you know, they're both carrying this donkey on their shoulders. And they go across this narrow little bridge, and it's kind of wet, and they slip, and the donkey goes in the river and drowns. And the moral of the story is, if you try to make everybody happy, you're going to lose your donkey. Or something like that. I love that story. Who are we trying to please? Who are we trying to make happy at the expense of our own nature and our own well-being, at the expense of our own authenticity, at the expense of our own being who we came here to be and who we possibly can be? It's a ways that sometimes that we tend to limit ourselves. Another question that we can ask to know more about ourselves and to grow personally is to really be willing to look at the question, who or what am I blaming in my life? Who or what am I blaming? Sometimes we blame in a very vocal way. Sometimes it's more subtle. Sometimes it's more of our self-talk. Or sometimes it's these just stories that we tell about the other silently. Sometimes it's not outwardly the case. I know Bob Stevens, many years ago, he's another Unity minister, wonderful, well-known, loved Unity minister, gave a talk that's gone through the Unity movement for many, many years, and actually not just in Unity, but this understanding has gone through a lot of self-help work and spiritual work throughout the country. And this understanding that when you point your finger at one person, notice how many are pointing back at you. I know this is not a new idea, but it's a really valuable awareness to remember that whenever you're pointing your finger at someone else, there are three of them pointing back at you, and the real lessons in that are, what's in this from me? Another question that this leads to is, what in me is contributing to this experience, this circumstance? I think it really is a sign of absolute, not only spiritual maturity, but just human maturity, when you find yourself letting go of the need to blame others. When we find ourselves letting go of that need to make others responsible, when we find ourselves letting go of the need to make others wrong for circumstances and situations in our lives. Because the reality is the moment that we blame someone else, what we're really doing, Robert Anthony, the great psychologist, said, when you blame others, you give up your power to change. When you blame someone else, you're automatically making someone else responsible for and giving away your power to be able to make a different choice, to look at differently, to accept and own your part in a situation or a circumstance. So asking the question, what is in me, to me is contributing to this, gives us an opportunity to look at where we can accept responsibility for what's happening. Dr. Haleakala Q. Lin, that's easy for me to say, right? Wonderful spiritual teacher from Hawaii, teaches the self-identification through Ho'oponopono. Another easy thing for me to say, right? One of the things he very much teaches, and Louise Hay teaches the very same thing, it is this understanding that you and I are each 100% responsible for the experiences in our lives. That's a tough one for us sometimes because we really so much want to make other people responsible. But we need to understand the difference between responsibility and blame. It's really valuable for us to tune into the understanding that the word responsible really means that we are the ones who have the ability and the response and the possibility of responding to whatever is going on. Whereas blame is basically saying, I have no power over this, someone else is doing it. So you're not trying to make someone else responsible. You're not trying to make yourself responsible. You're not trying to blame yourself even for that matter. Blaming is really trying to make ourselves wrong. It's basically a statement and an energy and a consciousness of wrongness. But wrongness doesn't necessarily change the circumstance or situation. Labeling something as wrong doesn't necessarily change it. You have to be willing to accept responsibility in order for change to happen. So blame stops short with that, doesn't it? It only states this is wrong. And it's trying to make something or someone else or yourself wrong. And so if we can move out of the energy of blame and move into the energy of accepting responsibility, we can then make a choice about how we are going to participate in making the change happen. So what area of responsibility is mine to step into now? What is it that I need to know about me as a result of this particular situation that I'm blaming? What do I need to learn about myself when I do this? What does this blaming or judgment actually say about me? When I find myself blaming someone else, judging someone else, and then don't get me wrong, I still do it some. It's not my fault though, it's all your fault. That's a joke for those of you that take it too seriously. What does it tell about me? What does it say about myself when I'm in that energy and that mode of blaming? Oftentimes it says more about us than it does the person that we're judging. So ask yourself the question, what's this judgment saying about me? Jesus kind of said it this way, take the speck out of your own eye, and then you'll see more clearly to help the other remove the speck from their eye. So ask the question, what is this speck in my eye that I'm choosing to see on someone else? Alexander Pope says, it is with our judgments as with our watches, no two are just alike, and yet each believes his own. We have a tendency to believe our judgments. We make these judgments, and we believe that our judgments are the truth. And this is one of the ways that we find ourselves getting stuck. So there's a great little story about that. There was a man who said his wife and he had met a wonderful couple at church one Sunday, and they stopped to introduce themselves and to exchange the pleasantries, and they described where they lived and the friendly neighborhood and they lived in and they just moved into, and they just loved it, and they were really enjoying their new place and felt like the neighbors and the people were very nice, and the people listened sympathetically, and they kind of lamented that theirs really wasn't. They really didn't care much for the people that they were, there, and they had kind of an opposite experience, and they were kind of regretting living there. And so when they said their goodbyes, they got into the cars and they drove home, and they were absolutely horrified to see these same people pulling in next door to them. And I thought, wow, we are judged by our judgments more than we are known by our judgments more than we are known in almost any other way. So notice and pay attention. What is it in me? What does this reveal in me when I am in that energy, that consciousness, and that feeling of judgment of other people? One of my favorite jokes, and it really is a joke, I want you to know. One of my favorite jokes that I like to tell, and I tell it a lot, I really hate judgmental people. If you don't see the irony in that, then you may want to ask yourself the question, what am I buying into? So those are the questions that we have for this week. Who am I judging? What am I blaming? Where am I avoiding responsibility? One more question that I will throw out there that I think is really valuable in all of these questions. And the question really is, what in my life am I resisting? What am I resisting? There's the principle at work, what we resist persists. And sometimes we find ourselves resisting asking these questions of ourselves. We resist and we find that, and there are different ways that we resist. One of the ways we resist is, oh yeah, I asked that question once. It's not a once kind of thing. It's kind of an ongoing experience, and it's a way of helping us to continue in discovering more of the possibilities. If you took up martial arts and Aikido, part of the work is to transmute energy, is to move the energy through, I was reminded of this last week, actually. Part of the work I took a class many years ago in Hapkido and learned that the real way to defend oneself is not to accept another's energy. That what you do is you take that energy and you let it pass by, and you're able to move from one side to the other, and you're able to allow that energy to go past, and even sometimes, if necessary, right through you. It's a beautiful form, and it's a beautiful spiritual metaphor, I think, in life, that oftentimes when we resist something, we find that it has even more force in our lives. And so ask yourself this question, what is it I'm resisting in life? What am I resisting? Had one of my teachers tell me some years ago, somehow the subject of boredom came up. And the teacher said that boredom is a sign that you're resisting your next step in spiritual growth. It's another form of resistance, isn't it? So ask yourself, where am I bored in my life? Or what is it that I'm avoiding doing that I know would be probably good for me, or maybe not, but that I would grow through? So as you go through this week, I encourage you to really take some time to reflect on and listen to these questions. Have fun with them. Let it be a game to ask yourself these questions and see what Spirit has in store for you as you begin to move through all of the different opportunities in life to grow into a bigger you. God bless you and have a great week. Let's move into our meditation time. All right, let's take a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. We open our hearts, our minds, our whole being to the presence of God right here, right now, in us, in each other. And so as we take this moment to simply be still, close our outer eyes, and we open our inner eyes and heart to that presence, that light, that spirit. The dove is a symbol of the spirit of love, the spirit of God descending into creation, into you and I. So just allow this opportunity to rest in that knowing that there is a presence, a light, an energy, a vibration that is moving in and through you, that is there to open you to a greater possibilities of your unique divine nature. Let your heart and mind be open to the questions that can help you to step into those greater possibilities. Ask yourself if you are willing now to step into a bigger life and let go of the life you know now so that you can experience more of the presence and the blessings that God is and has for us and through us. Ask yourself, what might I be resisting in life that might be blocking me from experiencing more of my unique divine nature? What in me am I contributing to the circumstances and situations in my life? If I'm facing a challenge or a difficulty in some form, in some way, I'm reminded of the words of Eric Butterworth, who said, "What's in this from me?" And be willing to listen so that we can make choices. Let your heart and mind be open to that descending of the dove, that spiritual upliftment, enlightenment, that presence of peace. And give thanks, knowing that a blessing is always available, always moving us in the direction of the greater possibilities of good. Setting our intentions on experiencing and knowing more of who we can be. Seeing in the distance and staying focused on that, knowing that yes, there are obstacles and challenges, but we don't want to put our energy and attention on those limiting thoughts and beliefs. Just see and know yourself moving in the directions of your dreams. And know that Spirit is lifting your wings to move you in that way. Let that feeling of being lifted come into your awareness, into your heart. Give thanks for it. And give thanks for the expressions of light and love and good that are always expanding you into your divine possibilities. Thank you, Blessed Spirit. Take a nice deep breath. Breathe into the heart space. Let it be filled with that joy and gratitude, uplifting spirit. Take another nice deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes.